What is good, everybody? I'm Max, the part-time pit master, and you're watching Part Timers Barbecue. And on today's episode, we're dealing with full packer brisket once again. But in this episode, I'm going to be doing a couple different methods, and I'm cooking it on my new barrel. What better, right? Let's get into it. So a couple things I look for when I'm picking a brisket is one, how does it bend? So bend means that you got a better chance of getting yourself a tender brisket. But also, I look for the striations in the meat. So there's that surface fat right here, but then this right here is what runs in the meat. That's what renders down, adds moisture, helps keep this flat moist, basically, right? So that's what you look for there. You want a somewhat thick flat end. This is the flat, this is the point, and you want a good shape to it. This isn't oddly shaped. This is actually a good shape. I don't like super big briskets. I like them around this size. It's gonna cook a lot evener, or it's gonna cook more even, and it's not gonna take as long. So now that I got that out of the way, let's tear it open and get with the prep. Start by patting it dry. We're gonna get all those juices that are in the package off of the meat. I've said this before, you don't want none of that on the meat. Once we are all patted dry, we're gonna start by taking this mohawk off the top, and that's gonna help it sit flat. I am actually gonna keep that and smoke it as well. And we're gonna go and hit this decal. Not a very big decal on this brisket. Take the oxidized meat off the side. Shows you how much fat you're working with on the top layer there too, if you noticed. We're gonna take off some of these little danglies and silver skin. There's actually not a lot on this bottom side to prep up, which is always good. Now we will flip it over and we're gonna start working on this fat cap. We can tell there's a lot of fat in this one area over here. So we're gonna start whittling it away until we get to about the standard 1/4 of an inch, eighth of an inch. Rounding out the sides as we go. So basically you want to take down any big chunks of hard fat and any buildup and abundance of fat. You want a nice thin layer so it'll render properly. And I'm keeping all this fat. I'm going to chop it up really fine and I'm going to render it down for brisket tallow. You'll see that later on in the video. So now we're going to round off the corners. I don't actually have to take too much off the flat on the one side because it's not too thin. So I just took off a little bit there, round it out. You give it a nice good shape. So now that we're done with the trim, it's time to season. I got my mustard mixed with apple cider vinegar, using that as the slather / binder. I'm gonna get that all over the brisket, and then I'm gonna season it up with my Barky Brisket's beef rub, which is basically just a SPG with extra things in it. So I'm gonna make sure to hit this all over. I'm doing the fat cap first because I'm actually gonna cook this fat cap down for the beginning of the cook, but we'll get more onto that when we get there. It's a big piece of meat, so don't be afraid. You can load it up with the seasoning. Hit this side now. And once it's all seasoned, I'm gonna put it in the fridge and I'll bring you guys back in the AM when I'm throwing it on. Good morning, everybody. So it's just after 4 in the morning. I was up at 3, get the charcoal chimney heated up, getting the pit temp up. So we are about ready to throw on the brisket. Good morning. I went back to bed. Well, we got it on around 4, just after 4. It's just after 7 now. So we are actually going to do our first check. Spray it with some apple cider vinegar, W sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and water I mixed together. And I'm going to add a couple more things on to the grill. I have some of the fat that I trimmed off the brisket. I cut up really small. I'm gonna render it down for some tallow, not to wrap this brisket in, but for if I want to reheat some leftover brisket, add some fat to it, right? And the mohawk, so the hump that we trimmed off of the top of the point, save that. I seasoned it up. We're gonna throw it on there for a little snack. So let's get into that. So this is our first check on this brisket. Oh, and you'll notice I cooked it fat side down. Normally I'm a fat cap up guy. Cook this fat cap down, but then once I wrap it, I'm gonna foil boat it. Shout out to Chud's Barbecue. I'm gonna foil boat it, and then I'm gonna actually flip it fat cap up. Give it a light mist. Not bad. Here's that tallow. On the side there. And then here's that little mohawk. Let's get it closed back up. And I'll see it in another hour and a half. What is good? What is good? We are at 6.5 hour mark, 11 a.m., almost 12. We are going to go in there. I'm going to check just to see what the temperature is. All right, if it's around 170, then we're probably going to foil boat it. But yeah, and if not, we're probably going to check on the fat cap and flip it over, because for the second half of the cook, when we do foil boat it, I am going to have it fat cap up so that fat can really kind of crisp up and continue to render uncovered. And then we'll and as we're doing that, it's going to rehydrate the bark and the flat. But anyway, let's get in there and see what we're doing, see what we're working with. Tallow is rendering nice. That's looking good. Let's see what we're sitting at for temperature wise. So, some would wrap. I am not going to, but I want to check the bottom side here. Oh yeah, no, we're gonna give it a flip. Ooh, that looks good. Let me check our mohawk here a little. That one's going good. I wouldn't say it's done, but that's gonna be nice, kind of burnt end flavor. That over there, cool. All right, so I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna let it go for like another hour. Look at how soft that is. Oh my God, that looks so good. And then I'm gonna continue, and then I'm gonna wrap that up. So I'm thinking in about an hour we are going to wrap, maybe less than an hour. And we are sitting right at 170 internal. Brisket is looking good. Bark is looking awesome. So we are going to wrap it up. I'm going with the foil boat method this time. So I'm going to add a little beef broth in the bottom, and then we are going to just crimp the aluminum foil around the edges of the brisket. So this is going to allow the fat cap to continue rendering and crisp up a bit. We're going to collect the juices, and we're also protecting the flat. It's an awesome method. Created, made more popular by Chud's Barbecue, Bradley over there at that channel. Great YouTube channel. And here we're putting it back on. It cooked, I would say, for another maybe 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, and then it was probing tender. So you'll see right when we get into that clip now. See the jiggle? That is we are probing real tender. So we are basically ready to come off. Another thing I want to show you guys is how to tell for doneness is by feel. So we did the probe, felt how that felt. Now we're gonna, one sec, get our gloves with our lining underneath it. We're just gonna feel on the bottom here. You can feel that it feels like it wants to, it's squishy. That's another way to tell if we are done. And it's feeling real nice and squishy. And we rested for about 4 hours now. Brisket looks great. Color is awesome. It's loose, it's wiggly, it's jiggly. As you can see here. Looks amazing. Let's cut into it and see how we did. Time to split this brisket. You're not really going down the middle. Offset a bit. And look at that. You can see the juice on it. Not a huge smoke ring, but that's not a big deal. Take some slices from the from the flat right now. And we'll see how we did for tenderness. Let's see, we'll drape it over the finger. It holds up, it bends, it flops. Let's double it up and see. All right, we got a winner. Time to see how it tastes. Holds up on its own weight. Pulls apart like nothing. Let's go. And I will say, this was one of the best briskets I've done. Flavor was on point, and it actually stayed moist and juicy in the flat the whole time. Like after it was sliced, it was good. I was very happy with how this turned out. Oh yeah, before I forget, let me show you this. How that point turned out. Oh yeah.